When I was 12 years old, my father died in a tragic boating accident. At least, that's what the police and my mother told me. 15 years later, at my engagement party, a man with a time-worn face approached me. It was him. He wasn't dead. He had faked everything to escape gambling debts and start a new life. And now he was back, not to ask for forgiveness, but to ask me for a favor that proved the man I had mourned for so long never truly existed. My name is Helena, and for 15 years, my life was defined by an absence. The absence of my father, Marcos. I idolized him. He was a fishing boat captain, with calloused hands, a wide smile, and endless stories about the sea. He was my hero. When I was 12, he went out to fish on a stormy morning and never came back. The Coast Guard searched for days. They found wreckage from his boat, but never a body. The conclusion was inevitable, a tragic accident at sea. The grief that followed was overwhelming. My mother, the city's acclaimed visual artist, fell apart. She became a shell of her former self, fragile and distant. I, trying to be strong for both of us, buried my own pain and became her caretaker. The dynamic of our life changed completely. The image of the perfect family that my mother valued so much was destroyed. She stopped painting, and our finances, which I didn't understand at the time, became precarious. We had to sell our house by the beach and move to a smaller apartment in the city. I took on responsibilities far beyond my age, making sure the bills were paid and that my mother at least ate. I abandoned my dream of being a marine biologist, my father's profession, because it was too painful. Instead, I studied finance, seeking the security and stability we had lost. I worked hard, built a solid career as a financial consultant, and eventually managed to give my mother a comfortable life again. She never fully recovered, remaining in a state of perpetual melancholy, always talking about the love of her life that the sea had taken. I met David, my fiancé, 3 years ago. He is a kind man, an architect, and with him, for the first time, I felt I could build my own happiness, free from the shadow of tragedy. Our engagement party last month was supposed to be the official start of this new chapter. It was a beautiful party in the garden of the house we bought. Our family and friends were all there. And it was in the middle of the celebration that the ghost of my past decided to return. I was talking to an aunt when I saw a man standing near the gate watching. He was older, his face weathered by the sun, with an unshaven beard. There was something about him that pulled me in, an unsettling familiarity. Our eyes met, and then he smiled. And in that smile I saw it. It was my father's smile, the same crooked smile I saw in all the old photos. My heart stopped. I felt the world spin. I excused myself and walked towards him, my legs trembling, my mind screaming that it was impossible. "Dad," I whispered, the words strange in my mouth after 15 years. He nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "Helena, my girl, you're so grown up." The story he told me there, at the gate of my party, was more shocking than any storm. He hadn't died. He had run away. He had massive gambling debts, owing money to very dangerous people. The accident was a sham, a desperate way to escape and to protect us, he claimed, from the retaliation of his creditors. He told me he had lived the last 15 years under a false name in a small coastal town in another country, working on fishing boats, always looking over his shoulder. He said he had followed my life from afar, through newspaper clippings and social media, that he saw my success and was filled with pride. "I wanted to come back sooner, every single day," he said, his voice thick with an emotion that seemed genuine. "But I couldn't. It was too dangerous. But now, the men I owed are either in prison or dead. It's safe. And I couldn't stay away any longer. I needed to see you, needed to ask for your forgiveness." I didn't know what to feel. Anger, relief, grief. 15 years of mourning a lie. My mother's pain, my sacrificed youth, all because of his cowardice. But he was my father there, alive, in front of me. The 12-year-old girl inside me just wanted to hug him. I asked him to wait, to give me time to process. I went back to the party in a daze. David, my fiancé, noticed immediately that something was wrong. That night, I told him everything. He sat in silence, absorbing every word. He held my hand as I cried, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming anger and confusion. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me wants to get in the car, drive to wherever they are, and demand answers. Another part wants to forget this ever happened, to protect the life we've built. "You can't forget, Danny," she said wisely. "That girl is your daughter. And you deserve the truth." With the help of a private investigator, it wasn't hard to find them. Helena wasn't hiding in a remote cabin. She lived just 2 hours away, in a neighboring city. She had gone back to using her maiden name, Solis. She was an architect, working at a small firm. She never married. She raised our daughter alone, just a few dozen miles from me, for a decade and a half. His new wife, the woman he left us for, was hysterical. "You have to help us," she sobbed. "Felipe, he's missing. The people he owes, we think they've taken him." She blamed me. "This is your fault. If you had just given us the money, none of this would have happened. You're a heartless monster, abandoning your own brother." "First," I said, my voice cold as ice, "he's not my brother. Second, the mess you're in is of your own making. Don't call me again." And I hung up. But her call left me uneasy. What if something really serious had happened? Guilt, a phantom echo of my childhood, began to gnaw at my conscience. It was then that my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. "Is this Tiago?" a voice asked. It was Felipe himself. He hadn't been kidnapped. He had run away. He was terrified, hiding in a cheap hotel in another city. He told me the debt was bigger than he had admitted to his parents, and that he just didn't see a way out. He called me, he said, because he didn't know who else to call. He sounded young, stupid, and utterly terrified. And in that voice, I didn't hear the new son who replaced me. I just heard a kid in trouble. I sighed. "¿Dónde estás, Felipe?" I asked. I drove for 2 hours to the roadside hotel. I found him in a dingy room, huddled on the bed. He told me the whole story. The gambling addiction, the lies, the fear. I listened, and then I offered him a deal. I would pay off his debt. Once. But on conditions. He would go home, confess everything to his parents, and he would enter a rehabilitation program for gambling addiction. And he would get a job, any job, and pay me back every single cent, even if it took him the rest of his life. And the most important condition, he would never, ever mention to our father that I helped him. This was not an act of reconciliation with my father. This was something different. He agreed to everything, tears of relief streaming down his face. I made the anonymous wire transfer to the creditors. I drove Felipe back home and dropped him off at his parents' door, with instructions on what to do next. I never spoke to my father again. But a few months later, I received a small envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a check for a modest amount and a note with clumsy handwriting. "First payment. Thank you." It was from Felipe. I don't know what the future holds for my relationship with my father. Probably nothing. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. But in helping Felipe, I realized that my fight was never against him. It was against the ghost of abandonment. And by choosing compassion over revenge, I didn't save him. I saved myself from becoming the kind of man my father was, the one who turns his back when someone needs help. And that, I've discovered, is the only inheritance that truly matters. The next day, I executed the final part of my plan. With the help of my investigator, I found my father's second wife. I sent her an anonymous package. Inside, there was only a copy of his original marriage certificate to my mother and a photo of us as a family from before the accident. I don't know what happened after that, and I didn't want to know. But I knew I had given her the tool to protect herself and her children from him. And as for him, I met him one last time. I handed him an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "It's a fresh start," I said. Inside was a one-way plane ticket to a faraway place, a place where no one knew him, and a sum of cash sufficient for him to get by for a few months. "This is all you will ever get from me," I said. "Use it to start over, for real this time. Or gamble it away. The choice is yours. But if I ever hear from you again, if you ever try to contact my mother or your other family, I will use every resource I have to ensure you spend the rest of your life answering for your crimes. We are even." He took the envelope, his eyes empty. He was no longer a king, nor a hero, not even a villain. He was just a lonely old man. He turned and walked away, and this time, I knew it was forever. My life, which had been turned upside down, slowly began to settle. The revelation about my father, as painful as it was, had an unexpected effect. It freed my mother. With the closure I gave her, she began to live again. She started painting again, going out with friends. The shadow that had loomed over our house for 15 years finally dissipated. My marriage with David became even stronger. Facing that crisis together united us in a way I didn't think possible. And me? I made peace with my past. The anger gave way to a sort of melancholic peace. I didn't get my father back, but I got myself back from the story he created. And I realized that true strength isn't in confronting the ghosts of the past, but in having the wisdom to know which doors must remain closed forever, so that new ones can finally open.